everyone for being here. This is a good time for me to kind of talk about some of the things that I do as an artist. Thank you for the introduction and to Ashley contacting me, letting me know about the exhibit. So that was real interesting when I got to know about that, for an opportunity that was happening in November about culture and bringing the community together. And that's one of the things that I do with my art, is I like to examine cultures that are usually historical, is where I fit in, but then it ties into what is happening currently also. Because I feel like education is a big part of change. And as long as there are avenues where people can get different information, then we can see changes that will happen. Because I know for me, even personally, as I was doing the research, as I learned more information about what I was studying, and I'll go more into that, but more about what I currently do is I teach at Bellevue High School, and I also do this, and I took today off because teachers will understand how that can be, because one wrong student, and then, so I don't want to take any chances. Okay. So I have found that education is going to be key in creating some of the changes. When I first started doing this, I had no idea that it would go to where it's going and what it would do for me, with some mental changes for me. This all began as me just one day saying, I wanted to do some information to study about family history so I can give it to my father. I passed it on. I think that's what I found out about, the Eadys. And then as I was doing it, I started coming across some incredible things that I just didn't know existed. And one of the first thing was with the census. And it was almost as if it was right away. It's almost as if, as soon as I saw that first document, I knew that it was going to be a different kind of research that I was going to come across. It was the 1790 census, and there was a column that was on there, and it was for all other free persons. And this is in South Carolina. So that threw me. I'm like, wait a minute, what is this all other free persons? And then, to take it even further, there were some Eadys who were listed in the all other free persons. And so I'm on Facebook, and I'm looking through the picture that too. I was talking to someone here, some others, and they're telling me about Instagram, so I'm looking to develop that more. But on Facebook, I'm in a group, it's the Eady group. And even when I was presenting some of the information to them, they were skeptical about some of the things that I was saying about Eady Town. Well, I wasn't going to say Eady Town so fast, but it slipped out. But yeah, and that's one of the things. They were like, Eady Town, what is this Eady Town? But Eady Town ties right in, and this is in the 1700s, ties right into what we have going on now, even with this exhibit. The cultural difference, because it was a tri-racial settlement. There were blacks, Indians, and whites that lived on that settlement. So now, I know it seems like it will depend on how much research individually each have done. But for me, when I was first coming across it, that was very unique to me. And so, what this will do with people, when they hear that kind of information, is cause them to think about some things about history. Now I feel that history, I know it's going to be a long shot, but I feel that history can be changed. I don't think it physically can be changed, but I think the understanding of it, because if something happened in the past, and you weren't clear about it, let's say it happened 10 years ago, it won't even can go back so far. But if it happened 10 years ago, and you didn't have the right understanding about it, and then you get the right understanding, there's a certain way you can, oh, now I understand. Now I get it. So it's not physically changing history, but your understanding of what happened during that time. Because the South was a lot different than how I imagined or what I thought it was like. And so that's one of the things that drove me to this kind of research. That started when I was actually at Sunrise Elementary, and I see two teachers from Sunrise Elementary, and that's when a lot of our research started. I would have like my papers all over the desk. Yeah. So I was really consumed by it. To count the hours, they're a lot. We could easily say about $10,000 over about the last 10 years. So I'm wrapping this up into what I have going now, and I'll go over it, and then I'll let you ask some questions. That's my favorite part. Because one thing about the questions, especially early on, because I like being truthful about with what I know. And sometimes I would get a question and I would try to make something up. So it would just cause me to be ready for the next time that I may get that question. So I would go and research it more. I'm like, yeah, well, how did that actually happen? So because one question in particular, because there were a lot of when I say free blacks, and this is those who were free before the Civil War. Because I know sometimes I start talking and I'll use a term that they think everybody's familiar with. Even with the students, I would say, what do y'all think the first census was? And even knowing what the census is, some of them wouldn't know. So, like census, what are you saying? Are you trying to say census? What are you saying? So that term was free for those who were free before the Civil War. Now, I'm going to talk about this. And I want to move this. Yeah. And so now this thing has that document on there, 79. We'll go over it more on there. But it has the census from 1790. And this one was just recently acquired. And it's amazing how things are just happening now, with me and art and the timing of it, even for the exhibit that I have at the Appleton, and meeting Carrie Davidson, you may be familiar with the exhibit that he did at the Appleton called Memories and Reflection. So when I was doing a proposal for the exhibit at the Appleton, his exhibit was there. And so when I saw it, I was taking a look, seeing all the work, and then Jack Lawrence there, he had Michael Ellison there, and when I saw Michael Ellison's work, I immediately knew who it was. I know Jack Lawrence because I saw his work all the time, especially when I college. I immediately knew who it was. I said, that's Mr. Ellison. I wish I could get the recording on that because I was floored by it. And the reason I was, he was my instructor in college. He was my instructor in college, and I'm seeing it, and this is a national tour that's going on. And so I was just amazed by that. So the story goes even further. So after Carrie, and I've always wanted to meet Carrie, even when his collection was beginning, which was decades ago. This is probably about 30 years ago. So I started imagining. I said, wow, that's interesting. He's collecting all his work. So it's a lot bigger now. So when I happened to get an email from him, that's another, I'm not believing this. I was getting on my son, and I'm telling him sometimes you're going to do something and then you don't do it and then you wish you had done it? This is one of those times because I knew and I could tell already this is just going to be a special time in here. Something's going to happen. And I was actually going to bring the piece that Carrie, he actually sent me a piece by Michael Ellison from the time that I was in college, because he collected so many pieces of him. And not only, and that was so meaningful that he would send that. Then he also said, and what he said, it made it deeper. He said, Michael would have loved for you to have this. And then that just, I'm like, I said, I'm inspired. I'm inspired. And so what I was going to do is bring it, because I didn't open it. I was waiting on the right time to open it. I was going to bring it and I was going to open it here. See, you can tell that would have been on time. It would have worked. Okay, so now I think I clear what I wanted to on here. Let's see. So the title, Hidden Freedom, is twofold. Okay, so because when you first hear it, you pretty much get the understanding of, okay, there's some hidden that I might not have known about, so this book or this exhibit is going to be talking about that. But the other side of Hidden Freedom is that when you find out this information that you wasn't aware of, it creates a certain freedom for the person, whoever is reading it. It gives you a sense of a freedom of something you didn't realize. It gives you a freedom of, I did not know this, but now I do, and this is just good for me to know. That's a good thing that I'm glad that I found out that I didn't know, and now I do. I'm starting with this image, and this is, I'll tell actually about this too. It's pretty cool, actually. Having the image being projected and on the wall, that's never happened before. And I want to start with this one, because everybody knows that this is the horse, and I'm going to try to do about 25, 30 minutes in total, and then we're going to get you some questions. I know it's Friday, but we're going to go, and I'm going to feel like everybody's still with me. I'm kind of telling you, from teaching high school, I kind of know this, like, oh yeah. So I'm starting with this because we're in Ocala, and this is the horse capital. Now this is interesting to me. Like before the Kentucky Derby, most of the riders were black jockeys. And in fact, the Kentucky Derby, the first one was in 1875, and there were 15 jockeys, and 13 of those were black. Now the reason they were black was because the owners found out that the horses ran faster with the caretakers. So they were the ones who were taking care of the horses, and so then the horses ran faster for them and started winning more races. So that's how that started. Now, after 1875, there were still quite a few, but it just began to dwindle down, over the years, and now it's more up on what we see today. But this was the big sport of the time. Now, I have a famous similar to this. It's called American Jockey at Appleton. And one thing about it is there's information that's next to it, and I like that the Appleton is really, inclusive with their work and what they present. There's information about the black jockey, because I had an understanding of it, but it wasn't an area that I really did a lot of research on it, I did with other things, but there was someone who did, and he was slicing and dicing. And so much to the point that and you know how it is when you see something and you reword it, and then you write your name on it. I was like, wait a minute. I'm like, no. I said, it almost felt like a little bit of plagiarism to me. I said, how can he do all this research? And I knew it took a while, because I know how it was to me. And I just come along and say, yeah, and change that, and then just put my name on it. So even, I kept his name on it. And then I have the king, and then just some other points that I have on there. Now, what's going on with this one is two different styles. There was a time when I did the impersonated cotton scenes. And in fact, yes, because there was going to be an person early on one of the cotton scenes. So that's what I was doing, the impersonated cotton scene. I was good. I just like doing that. I was using art colors, I was using oil, and I just liked what was happening. So I had that. It was hanging against the wall, and this is when I started to do the research. And then I said, okay, how can I include what I'm doing with what I want to say? How can I make this art? This is that point now where I've been researching for a while, and I know more than what I did before. So how can I make this happen as art? I had learned the silk screen method. You see the letters there? What's happening? I make the paper look old, and then I do a silk screen over it. That's also something with printmaking that I learned from Mr. Ellison. So I make the paper look old. I started out as usual. I started out as, with the coffee and the tea. That was just my mindset. Until I thought, wait a minute, I'm an artist. So then I started introducing the art supply. That's when I started using inks, paint, actually acrylic paint, and a lot of other different mediums on the paper to kind of create the old look. And when I was doing it, at first, when I tried to make it happen, I'm putting all this on the paper, it's not doing exactly what I wanted to do, and so somehow I flipped it over and looked at the back, and when I saw the back, I said, that's what I want. So that is pretty much my method now. I do it with the expectation of working on the other side of it. So we have that, and the impersonated cotton. Okay, so yeah, this is slightly. Now this is interesting. Okay, so this is talking about the mixture, either like black Indian, black white. So a lot of times, like when the indentured service were white, and the slaves were black. So they would work side by side, next to each other. So eventually, they started having children together. So now there is one author, and the title of his book is Free African American in Virginia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. And he goes as far as to say, and I used to include it, he goes as far as to say this is the reason for as much as like 90% of the birth of like mulattoes, those who are mixed. He said that's the reason that most of them were born. So with his research, I was able to find out that, and this is how he got started. He was a white man, and he married a black woman, and she wanted to find some information about her family. So I forgot what his particular job was, but he decided to, and it had to be some kind of job he had access to a lot of information. where he started to research the courtrooms all around the South. And he started coming across records about the free blacks. And he got an award for the book. So, after I saw the information that he had, I started including a lot of his documents, things like that, throughout the art, throughout the book. But that's how he got his information from court records. And once I came across that book, there are some books, some type of information, that just changed things a lot. Now, his name was Paul Henning, and he had kind of changed a lot on how I continued to do what I was doing. So I have to, let's see. Okay, I know what comes next. I kind of adjust these to kind of fit like a presentation that I'm going to do, like I did the artwork that was here. And I knew that Anna, now the thing about it with Anna is that before we went to art field, like it was here. And so this is like the ground, this is like the stage ground zero. Ground zero for Anna. Now Anna, she wanted to read. And therefore, it's not as black and white as I thought it was. Actually, there were some communities, some areas that were more okay with it than others. Some were openly okay with them reading. Some were okay, you can stay out of sight. But it's not as if it was like outlawed, nobody did it, they didn't do it, because they did. Because I even saw a lot of like the documents and the petitions where they would sign their names. And so I'm having to register all of that too. So I'm really showing this to get to. Well, this is the best thing about this. And so this was a petition. So I found out that there would be a lot of petitions, and that's how I got a lot of information from the South Carolina Archive. This was a petition so that they were trying to stop some of them from reading, and that knowledge becomes so common in the community. But with doing that, it makes you aware that that was going on, that the reading was going on, that the reading is out, that they wasn't trying to stop it if it wasn't there.
Charles, before you go forward, can you read that for those of us that can't see it, the highlighted part?
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, that's fine. So the facilities, however, that are afforded them by the means of schools professionally come from the Institution of Free Persons of Color, and this document is most of the documents that you see will be around the 1800s to about the 1850s. Okay, on some it doesn't have the actual document has the date on it. We'll soon learn this knowledge very common in our community.
Thank you.
So this is letting you know that there were the schools that were kept there for the persons of color. It was there. There was a school there. So I never knew that something would keep my attention as much as art would. I mean, I was pretty much art, art, paintbrush, my music, I'm good. Even if I've been in the garage, right next to the lawnmower. So yeah, that's how I was good. But then when I started doing the research for the book, it kept me too, that was new to me. So when I'm doing research and I'm writing the book, and then when I'm writing the book, I'm just drawn to Anna, how she might have looked. And I just wanted to know how Anna might look. So that's what we did. Okay, this is saying, for some of you, I know you really said, she's a character in my book, she wanted to read herself free. And Briscoe, who's actually on a document, that's where I got that name from, he was a free black who taught her how to read. So they could, once again, this picture of the South is a little bit different than what I had in my mind. They could visit plantations. They could, and it was okay. It was something that, especially on Sundays. I did not know that. And that's the thing that I'm working on. Now, sometimes I get to the point where I have to submit some artwork, and it's probably not finished, but I still need to send it, and then the same thing just happened. There's an exhibit that's in Austin, and I have to send some pieces that I'm not quite finished with. But I didn't know, most of the time when that happens, you send in the image, but they still later get to see the original work. But this particular exhibit, they're going by what they see, so they see a lot of stuff that's not finished. So I don't know. So that's the statutes of liberties. Now this is interesting. Now one of the things that I kind of committed myself to when I was doing this, that I want to have reliable sources. I said, as long as I have 3 reliable sources, then I'm okay. Reliable with Congress, something like archives, it's something reliable, especially with some of this. Because normally, when I would have seen, and I had to really clear my mind from a lot of assumptions. I really had to do that. Because normally, when I would see that document, I would have thought it was like a white person applying for land. But actually, this is Daniel Eady, and this is in 1773, and he was, different records will say different things, but it is conclusive that he was mixed. He was part Indian, mixed with black, and then they're based on just me talking to some people who's actually related to that family. He may be mixed with white also, because of another relative they had who was Jonathan Eady. And so this is saying Jonathan Eady, his heirs, and assigns a plantation or tract of land containing 100 acres in St. John's Parish County, Marion, South Carolina. Now that was pretty close. And this is what we talked about earlier. That's the document. That's where it's handwritten. And even in my book, a lot of the names come from the document. And I just happen to know that the person that did this document was Colburn. So even when I write the story, I put his name on there. And they pretty much went in order. Like on the census. And there was one piece of document that I was looking for, and I went through every county in South Carolina, which is about 60, trying to find a particular document about this parish. And that was the difference. This was a parish. So the parishes were at the end of all of that. So if I had started at the end, I would have been okay. And this is the document here talking about the community cities. I mentioned before. Sometimes the communities, we might have imagined them, or I know that I imagine them. It's not like this document was said. This is talking about white and black like living together, and this is a petition against that. So which means, and that's usually how it happens. There would usually be something that was going on. And they wanted it to change, and so there would be a petition that would be written about it. Okay, so now because I'm going to get to the point, because I know how it is, where, like I had a point where if you have a question, feel free to interrupt, raise your hand, or just ask a question. And if we don't get anybody asking a question, I think I'm just going to work out from the right. That's another thing I was thinking about before I got here. Should I rap or should I not? So, I don't know. I'm looking at questions. It's kind of, I hear it. documents and people can actually read them. But this is talking about the property that was owned by three blacks, and it totaled in Charleston about $500,000. And but this is during the time when they wanted the blacks out of the state, but then there were some whites wrote this petition saying, no, we don't want them to leave. You know, they bring value to the city. So this is that document. And this is pretty much it, kind of transcribed. There can be no better proof of this than the fact that they hold property in the city of Charleston to the value of more than $500,000. And I actually checked tax records, and it pretty much totaled that amount.
Excuse me, were the white people who were behind the petition motivated, do you think, by their perception of the value of the people, or their perception of the value of the labor of slaves?
It would be more like a combination, but leaning more towards profit and money, like a lot of things are. Because some of the things that they did, which was the craftsmanship that they did in the city, was, I mean, they were most of the ones who did it. You know, like they had other types of jobs and they did those types of jobs. So if they had left, there would have been no one there to do that type of craftsmen and artmanship. So now this is the 1895 map of Eady Town. So when I first saw the one over there, 1895, I knew that it was near Lake Marion because they actually, there was a drought that was there, and from the drought, there was a lot of Indian artifacts at the bottom of the lake. The lake itself was man-made. So when I was looking at this map, the first thing that I was looking for was, and I didn't know if I was going to find Eady Town or not, were the lakes, and I didn't see them. I was like, why don't I see the lakes? And no, I would see the lakes. Then I discovered that they were man-made, so I had to look a little closer, and I eventually found it. I was going there to see, of course, I didn't see that. Yes. Yeah, so.
When you first discovered Eady Town, were you like in a public place and you want to jump up and go?
Yeah.
Were you in public when you research?
Yeah, I was a lot of, and this was many of the things that I saw. It's like this unbelievable kind of thing that I go through. That's almost become like a thing now, where it's kind of like, okay, I already know that may happen. Yeah. But that was interesting. And then that's when I thought that other Edys, I thought other Edys would be about as interested in it as I was. Shockingly, they weren't. They don't even believe in me. What are my sources? How do you know where you getting all this from? That was the result. Yeah. So now this is like after the Civil War, but it's close to it. This is in the book where Paul Heine, when I took about Americans, South Carolina. So these are some families that were in that book, and you can see the mixture of the families there. Now there were a lot of triracial settlements throughout the South. A good article, yeah, in fact, a good article was called Slightly Mixed. Now that's how I got the title of that thing from. And I'll usually say it, and once again, kind of check the press, that title was so good I had to use it. Slightly Mixed, and it's spelled with a T up there. I gotta use that.
And what was Eady Town's main source of income or economic?
It was agriculture, and interestingly, and they own livestock. I've seen some of the wills where they own livestock. They print out corn. I have to remember that. Now some grew cotton too. That was a new thing for me. So some grew cotton and sold cotton. And we were, you can probably read, now everybody will probably read something a little bit differently. And to these portraits, I can't read much other than, I've seen them. But somebody may see some detail. These are families that were kind of, pictures were taken around that time, but it's after the Civil War. And most of my work is before the Civil War. But this is just so close to that time.
Are these government pictures?
These, I have seen from what's in the book, some at the Library of Congress. Some of those.
The Department of Agriculture
Yeah.
went out with pictures.
Oh.
But they back in the 1800s.
Yeah, and sometimes when I hear something like that, it'll remind me of something that I remember coming across. There was a town called Bartertown that was similar to Eady Town. And there were Filipinos there, there were Spanish people up there. This is in the 1600s and the 1700s. Yeah, so the Library of Congress has a ton of this is narrow. Like the box where all this information comes from, like all those years and all the research I've done, the box is like that much information. When I started writing the book, I was trying to remember a particular document I would be going through, trying to find it, but then I started to realize, hey, it's on the painting. So I was going to the painting and that was he's from Charleston, but I think he is from Ohio. But he is from, I just like the pictures. In fact, related to this, there was a collector. Yeah, that's the collector. This is the painting that he bought. I did a painting called Hidden Freedom, and they used that image, but it's got a lot of other things happening around it too. The very first time that I entered in art field, that's the pen that I use, and it's probably about that high. So the first time that I went to art field, it's inspiring. So the first time I submitted the image, I was excited about getting in there. It was just really exciting. And I think I got a chance. Because when you're looking at your actual work, but then everybody else working on the screen, you feel like you got a chance. But then I went there and saw the actual work, and it was incredible. It's like FIFO, however, it's in buildings. Then all the businesses bought into the idea, but not at first. They were resistant to it. Now the lady who was behind it, Miles Moore, and it's amazing what art can do, because it changed the city. It actually revived Lake City. It was on the decline. Now she grew up there. She went to Wall Street and made a lot of money. A whole lot of money. And then she came back and invested in it. And a lot of the people who were around, they were resisting her. But after a couple of years, the businesses who bought into it realized they made as much in those 9 days as it did for the entire year. So it's pretty much taken over Lake City now. This is from art. Everything is gallery hung. Like every business you go into, it's like walking from one gallery to another. This is just part of our painting, but that particular painting doesn't look anything like that anymore. That's usually how it is with me when I kind of let a painting stay. And I look at it, a lot of artists, you'll see it, and then you just make some changes, and I'll make some changes. And sometimes the changes are good, and sometimes I wish I never made those changes. Okay, so this is the one at the altitude. Any questions? Anybody got any more questions?
Your Jackie paintings are more abstract than others. Is that just a different style or earlier period?
Okay, good question. It's a different, like, style is earlier. It's like these were earlier, and these were some of my latest, where it's like I have been doing these for a while, and I decided that I was gonna try something else, and I decided to do one that didn't have any documents on it, just to kind of see if I can kind of create a mood without even having the documents on there. And at one point when I would do these, like people would read them a lot. I might have this at the library in Bellevue, and I figured it out later because the manager would tell me, he said people would just go and look at your painting and just stand there and stare. And I said, huh, that's interesting. And then I thought about it. Then I realized they were probably reading the documents on there. Now, and usually paintings, for me, I'll do the painting first, and then there's this struggle, and sometimes as much of a struggle as it is for the painting, trying to come up with a title. But this was the first painting where the title actually came first. It's like when I said it out to myself, I was like, I like that. Banjos and afro. So the banjo is an instrument that was created in Africa. And I just wanted to put a question there with the afro, because usually when we think about the afro, it's usually around the 70s that we think about the afro. But then I'm wondering, could the afros go back any further? I don't know. I would like to research it to find out, but I haven't put that much research into it yet, but I just wanted to present that question. Any more questions? Like I said, sometimes I'll go over these and just change up some things. Now, this one is very, very exciting. One thing's happening. Usually when we think about runaways, we think about them going up north. This is another thing I'll tell you about. We think about them going up north, but a lot of them also ran to the city. They had people that they knew in the city. Charleston was a key area for that. So this was one of those people. Now the faces that I get, and some of you may remember this from the Freedom Riders and Oprah. There was an artist that was on there, Charlita Jansen. She did a series about the Freedom Riders. Just as I was thinking about doing something with the Freedom Riders, I can't do it now. It's already been done. But what I do is I'll take their face now and kind of use it with what I'm doing. So this is the overall look. I do change it up, but the overall look, she was one of the Freedom Riders. Yeah, artists will find a way. And this is my first time going national. That was pretty interesting. But yeah, that's the book. So that also means that's the end. So I asked a question, yes.
So, Kane and Shinny, you'll have to help me with this, because yesterday when we were talking about the evolution of art, particularly Norman Rockwell, and going from the bounty and the 40s and the turkey and the white privilege and so forth, all the way up to the painting that he did with the young girl being escorted into the school during segregation. She reminds me so much of her.
Oh!
You know the one I'm talking about? What's the name of that one?
Ruby Ridge.
Yeah!
Yeah.
I hear that now. I can put that there, yes.
Yeah.
That's why I like doing this, because I find out something that I didn't even have a concept about. Yeah, really rigid.
You've done so much historical research. Have you actually done your genealogy to connect with any of the past?
I did. And now that, I actually thought I put on the flash drive. When I was reading it out, I thought about it, and I was actually going to bring it. And it ties, a lot of it like the name, a lot of things would tie into the family with mine. So I am about 48% Bantu, and Bantu is Eady is also a Bantu name. There's an African linguistic. Am I right on that? But yeah, who studied it, and they visited places in South Carolina that had Bantu names, and Eady was one of them. Yeah. So
But you didn't personally go to your grandparents and look at the census and look at the census before. And do you know what I mean? Did you track your own document by document?
yes, I did, and I went back and forth, and it seemed like the name William is in the family life. And it started with asking my father some questions, pretty much like, the grandfather, his father, and the name William came up, and when I was from the census, I could see the William, so I was able to track back as far as around 1850, with William being tied to my family. But I like absolutes. It's not an absolute.
History is never an absolute. Like you said.
Yeah.
How do we represent history more realistically, though, in terms of what's taught in schools, including?
Okay, yeah. So, that drove me too, because I knew like the information I was finding out, I didn't know about from school, so I was really driven to like produce this information so that it would just be available. Let's say somebody didn't want to see it, it's there. And it's by no means anywhere near what is out there. There's just a whole lot of information, but once I got the mindset that there is more information, that's when I began to find more information. Because I could sense from writing a book, this was before I started finding a lot of the petitions, that something was happening along the lines of what petitions were saying. So that's when I started including petitions.
I have a comment on this question, maybe you can speak to it.
Okay.
You mentioned that when you started talking to other people and telling them about your family name and their family name and how there's all these different races all in this place, how people were sort of like, I don't believe you or I don't want to hear about that.
Yeah.
And I find probably the same is true with white Southerners hearing about history where they say, I don't want to hear about that, because people are really tied strongly to what they've been told or what they believe, and they don't want their beliefs challenged, if you will. And so I just, I don't know if you can speak to that a little bit.
I find that interesting. You can pretty much do it like I would even ask. Something got presented to the students, and they pretty much have concluded whatever it is that they're believing, that's what they're going to believe. This new information that you're giving me is not true information. And so it caused me to think. And so I developed from my thinking that this has something to do with learning something first. And once you learn something first, that's the thing you're going to strongly believe. So and I did a little bit more research into it, and there's actually a law called the law of first learn. Whatever you learn first is what you're going to hold true. You can make the changes, but some people will make the changes, but they will hold true to that and believe that as the truth.
I'm going to add yes to that. I think that's true. If you stop learning, but part of getting older is continuing that search for learning about yourself and those around you.
That's very important. Continue to learn. And sometimes, like how we kind of like perceive other people in that way too. Well, as far as wanting to learn more, like if you're a person that wants to learn more, you just kind of assume other people want to learn more too, or are open to ideas when they hear about them, but then you find out that that's not always the case.
Right, I mean, the people that come here are probably people that are curious, that want to learn what's happening now.
Yeah.
Versus
because I kept thinking, you know, my visions were terrific, and I'm thinking, I'm just not seeing where the jockey is.
Yeah.
I'm seeing the legs are defined and everything, and I realized they're together.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
And that's what looking at a painting is about. You know, they spend some time with it.
Yeah.
And you can't just look at it and oh, okay, I get it. You've got to really spend some time, and I really feel that with all your paintings.
Yeah,
All
thank
the
you.
time you spend, but particularly
Thank you. And I usually, like, when people will see it, they've seen it somewhere else, and then it's the actual work, you know, it's usually kind of along those lines. You know, it's just like more of than what I'm thinking. Yeah. Okay. Any more questions? Now, y'all did ask questions, but I think I'm still going to rap anyway. So this goes back to school. There was a student who wanted to rap Halloween, and I figured I'd just use some old bars from way back that I never heard of, and I did, and I still lost. So then I said, though, I said if I lose another rap battle, it's going to be with my own rhyme. So then that's what I came up with. Dropping a bunch of black microphones, sitting the drones home. Oh, that's good. Let me start over. Dropping a bunch of black microphones, sitting the drones home on my cell phone. Way back school zone, now I do it on my own. All right, thank you.